Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my Euro 2024 qualifier predictions for round 2. I mean, every single time I say that, it is an absolute mouthful.
That's what she said!
But ladies and gentlemen, today we have some fantastic games to talk about. But of course, before we jump into my predictions, I will admit that in order to get this video out on time, I'm recording this on Friday, so at the time of recording, we're only about halfway through match 1. So unfortunately, I do feel like a few of my predictions, it's a bit difficult to make because not all of the teams have played yet. But of course, I'm still going to give it my best shot and hopefully you guys enjoy anyway. But of course, jumping into game number 1 of round 2 of the predictions, we have Kazakhstan versus Denmark.
Kazakhstan is the greatest country in the world.
And although Kazakhstan weren't absolutely awful versus Slovenia, they did pick up a 2-1 loss. And versus a Denmark team who were brilliant versus Finland, picking up a 3-1 win, I just have to give this one to the Danes with a 3-0 win. I mean, look at their young 20-year-old striker. He even got a hat-trick, the likes of Højlund, which, I mean, talk about an Erling Haaland from Wish. I mean, the name even sounds similar to him. It's just another Scandinavian version of him. I mean, I guess it's, Mom, can we get Erling Haaland? No, Johnny, we've got Erling Haaland at home.
Bit shit, but that's how it is.
Jumping into our second game, talking about problems, we have England versus Ukraine. And the only problem I can see here is the fact that the best left back in football history has picked up a red card, but I'm sure England shouldn't have too many problems with that. They've got a lot of brilliant squad depth. And if there's one thing this England national team has, it is fullbacks. I don't think England should have a problem here. I do think they should pick up a 2-0 win over Ukraine. Although saying that, I don't know how much storytelling the universe has. With everything that's happened to Ukraine over the last year, maybe the universe will give some sort of story of them getting a magical win over England. Once again, absolutely anything can happen. It is football, but I do think England will take it 2-0. And of course, talking about anything happening before we jump into our next game, maybe one of the things that could happen while you watch this video is that you guys do hit the subscribe button. Once again, I know I ask in every single video, but it really does help the channel out, and especially if you like national team football, I would really appreciate it. But jumping into our next game, we have Liechtenstein versus Iceland, which, I mean, is it possible for both of these two teams to lose this game? I mean, genuinely, both awful in their first game. I mean, Liechtenstein lost 4-0 to Portugal, and I mean, even worse, Iceland lost 3-0 to Bosnia. I don't have a lot of faith in these two teams, but if I had to look at recent history between the two, I guess for some reason I've got more faith in Iceland, and I am going to give them a 1-0 win. Although, as I said, I could give them both a loss at this point in time. Now, of course, talking about losing, in our next game, we have Slovenia versus San Marino, which I don't know if I'm ever going to give San Marino a win.
Fuck you too!
I'm so sorry to any of my subscribers from San Marino, if any of you exist, but of course the lowest ranked nation in football in the entirety of the world has never gotten a competitive win, once again versus a nation like Slovenia with a lot of top quality talent. I'm not sure if I can give San Marino anything. I do think Slovenia, with the quality that they have in their squad, especially after that win versus Kazakhstan, I am going to give them a 3-0 win. Maybe that sounds a tiny bit harsh, but once again, it is San Marino. Jumping into our next game, it is going to be Slovakia versus Bosnia, which, looking at these two teams, it has potential to be a very, very close game. Obviously, Slovakia drawing versus Luxembourg in their first game, which I think was a tiny bit disappointing, and Bosnia getting an absolutely gigantic 3-0 win. But of course, as I said, both of these two teams are very, very similar on paper, as I said, and I do feel like they could be very similar on the field as well, which is why I am going to give them a 1-1 draw. Although, once again, I said in all the games, anything could happen. Now, jumping into our next game, it is Northern Ireland versus Finland. Now, I'm not going to lie, this actually has potential to go either way. I think looking at this Finland national team, I think the only thing that kind of sways me against them is that absolutely mammoth loss versus Denmark, especially considering the kind of talent they have in their team. From Kamara to Pukki to Hrdešky, they've got an absolutely brilliant team. But I'm going to give this one to Northern Ireland. I thought they were really good versus San Marino. Although, as I said, it is San Marino. But obviously a very, very impressive 2-0 win. Obviously there were likes of, I think it was Dion Charles, who got both the goals for him. But as I said, versus Finland, I expect at least, I'm going to say a 2-1 win. Now, heading into our next game, talking about Portugal earlier, it is Portugal versus Luxembourg, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. It has to be Portugal with a 4-0 win, especially looking at Cristiano Ronaldo. The only nation he scored more international goals against in his entire career is the likes of Sweden and Lithuania. He scored 6 goals versus Luxembourg in the games he's played against them. As I said, I do expect it to be a dominant one, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ronaldo scored all the goals. Now, talking about goals, whether the next game will be one with a lot of goals or not, I'm sure it will be, as it is Malta versus Italy. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely in love with the country of Malta. I think it's an absolutely beautiful country, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win football matches.
No way.
Especially versus the previous Euro winners with Italy. As we know, Italy, it wasn't their finest performance versus England in my opinion, but they definitely have the right tools and the right attributes to beat a nation like Malta, which is why they should pick up at least a 3-0 win. As we know, Italy on their day, one of the best nations in the world. Moving on to our next set of games, if I can get my laptop to work, we have Montenegro versus Serbia, which once again, maybe it could be a close game. I feel like Montenegro is a nation that could hold surprises, but Serbia, as we know, once again, with the quality in their team, should at least pick up a 2-1 win. Once again, potential underdogs of this tournament. Once again, we're going to have to wait and see as the tournament progresses. Next up, we do have Netherlands versus Gibraltar. Now, as I said, I'm recording this before the Netherlands-France game, so I'm not too sure what's going to happen there. Hopefully, Netherlands can put forward a really strong performance, but I think versus the likes of Gibraltar, they should have no problems, and they should get at least a 3-0 win. Once again, you look at every single position, every single player in this Netherlands national team, and there's no excuse to lose a game like that. Next up, we do have Poland versus Albania, though. Once again, I feel like both of these two nations, when I do think about them as separate entities, I do feel like they're very physical nations. I wouldn't be surprised that looking at a game like this, if there was a red card or two to be thrown around. Saying that though, in terms of the actual results, I definitely think Poland are the stronger team. I feel like people underestimate how strong this Polish national team is, and I think they're going to end up picking a very close but very entertaining 2-1 win. Now, heading into our next game, talking about entertaining, we do have the likes of Austria, which once again, very similar to Poland in terms of having quality players throughout. I don't think should have a problem versus Estonia. Once again, Estonia, I can't say I've seen too much from them in terms of the footballing world, in terms of what they can give. Once again, I always like an underdog story, but I do think Austria will win at least 2-0 this time around. Now, next up, we do have Sweden versus Azerbaijan, which, looking at Sweden, obviously this is recorded before the Belgium game, and I really like the Sweden national team. I really think people underestimate how strong they are. I know individually they are very strong, but when they play well as a team, they can almost be unbeatable. And versus a nation like Azerbaijan, I think Sweden could pick up a massive 3-0 win. Once again, a team that needs to push in order to qualify for the competition, and games like this could be crucial. Next up, we do have Moldova versus Czech Republic, which, as I said in my previous prediction video, Czech Republic have kind of fallen off in the last year or two in terms of what I've expected from them. But obviously, looking at them versus Moldova, they definitely are a stronger footballing nation in recent times, and it all depends on what a player like Patrick Schick does on the day, which is why I'm going to give Czech Republic a 2-0 win. Once again, we're going to have to wait and see, but I'm sure it will be entertaining. Next up, we do have Hungary versus Bulgaria though. As I said, Bulgaria have been very impressive in their last few games in terms of their defense, but we've just seen Hungary game in, game out, time in and time again, how brilliant they can be. Whether it was the Nations League last year, they were almost unstoppable versus footballing giants. In the previous Euros, they almost pulled off some spectacular performances, which is why I have to give it to Hungary with a 2-1 win. Once again, could be very entertaining. Now, next up, we do have Ireland versus France. Now, obviously, I mean, as long as Thierry Henry doesn't play with the handball here, I actually think Ireland might have a chance to do something here.
I am flabbergasted.
I mean, looking at Ireland, they've got some of the best young players in world football at the moment. But one thing you can't deny is the absolute beast strength of France. Obviously, getting back-to-back World Cup finals, you cannot deny their ability. And although I do like Ireland, and although I want them to do something, I do think France are going to take this one 3-1. I would like Ireland to score. Now, next up, we have potentially a very interesting game with Georgia versus Norway. Now, part of me is kind of broken that Erling Haaland isn't playing this game, because to see Kvaratskhelia versus Erling Haaland would have been an absolute matchup of dreams. But at the end of the day, without Erling Haaland, do I actually back Georgia to get points here? Look, as I said, Kvaratskhelia is absolutely brilliant. They've got other stars throughout their team that people underestimate. But looking at Norway, even without Erling Haaland, they've still got Soloth as a striker, they've got Martin Odegaard, and it is a very complete team. Even without Erling Haaland, as much as I do like Georgia, I do think Norway could pick up a 2-1 win here, although I wouldn't be surprised if there was a draw. Now, jumping into our next game, it is Wales versus Latvia, which, as I said in my previous video, although Wales don't have Gareth Bale anymore and I don't have as much faith in them versus a nation like Latvia, I mean, if Wales lose here, they might as well all retire to go play golf in the US.
I don't know. I'll pass on that one.
But versus Latvia, they shouldn't have too many problems, and I'm going to give them a 2-0 win. Next up, we do have Romania versus Belarus, which once again, just look at the history of Romania. I do feel like they are a stronger footballing nation. I feel like they've got one or two strong individuals in Belarus. And although I don't want to underestimate the ability of Belarus, I do think Romania will win this one 1-0. I think it will be close. Next up, we do have Switzerland versus Israel. Now, looking at Switzerland, I mean, we've seen them time in and time out. They've got a brilliant squad. I would say this is the golden generation of Swiss football. But if there's any nation that could kind of throw them off guard, I feel like it could be a nation like Israel. We've seen them with shock results in the past. But this time around, once again, just knowing the quality in the Switzerland national team, I am going to give them a 3-1 win. Now, next up, jumping into our third last game, where you do have Kosovo versus Andorra. Once again, I do think Kosovo has shown a tiny bit more of their ability over the last year or two. Neither of them necessarily gigantic nations when it comes to football, but I am going to give Kosovo a 1-0 win. Now, jumping into our second last game, it is Turkey versus Croatia. And as much as Turkey were underdogs about a year or two ago, I just cannot deny the ability to give Croatia points here. I mean, just looking at them, tournament in, tournament out, they just have so many surprises within them, and they really just show their strengths year in, year out. Therefore, I'm just not going to underestimate them at all, and I have to give Croatia a 3-1 win. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to our final game of the video with Scotland versus Spain. Now, I'm sorry, Dugout Football Channel, because I really would like Scotland to get the win here, but I am going to give this one to Spain 3-1. As we know, Spain just have an absolutely brilliant squad, although naming Alvaro Morata as your captain might mean that the entire squad is offside. But of course, look at Spain, you cannot deny their quality, especially compared to Scotland, who, although yes, Scotland have some brilliant individuals, they don't always necessarily gel well as a team. I would like Scotland to do well, but I just do think Spain will take it. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my round 2 predictions of Euro 2024 qualifiers. Once again, if you have any disagreements with me, let me know in the comment section down below. And once again, everyone's got different opinions. Guys, I hope that you did enjoy this video. If you did, please do like, please do subscribe, and I'll see you for the next round. Fin, FY, double N, cheers.